That's for our secretary.
Revision.
All right, I will call the meeting to order. We have here tonight Jean Julian, Nancy Ribetto, Jack Marco, Cindy Rummel, Dave Palmer, and I would ask Doug Bassett if he would sit for, as an alternate for Roger, please. I was gonna tell you not to get too comfortable. Watch the board. Watch the boards. The first item on the agenda is to review the minutes of the February 10th, 2015 special. Says it's a special meeting, but it was a regular meeting. That's all right.
I read them over, everything looked good
Yes,
to me.
fine.
Did we change the name for the public hearing, during the public hearing for the visit, the site visit?
Yes, it's in here,
Okay.
it says Roger in here.
Okay.
At least that's what was my memory when I read it the other day.
It does, Roger
It does,
and Jean,
okay.
yes.
So that's correct.
Yeah, I thought the minutes looked great.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3 on the agenda, cease and desist order, Reddington Rock Riding Club, issued 2/12/15, location 93, Handle Road, map 43, lot 19, zone AAA. Dave, you have an update?
Yeah, I showed you a letter, I just received this evening, letter's mailing out tomorrow from the health department to the club. In a nutshell, that can't operate as a camping area until they satisfy the items they list in regards to the well and the septic system, and also food handling or food preparation. Other than that, I haven't had any contact. I got one phone call from one member that there's a meeting tomorrow night of the club to discuss their plan. But other than that, no contact from an attorney or anything.
Quick question, Dave, I'm scanning the health department thing quickly here. Any of these issues so big they're gonna be almost impossible to meet? Are they all small or medium or?
The biggest is the well. They need to create what I believe is what they call a non-transient water system, similar to like Roaring Brook has, where it's monitored by a certified company or individual, and they submit quarterly reports, I believe, to the state. So there's some effort involved in that. They have to go out and do test pits, find a suitable septic area, have it designed by a professional engineer and installed. And the correct, the outhouses that are out there and so forth. There's a shallow well, they need to correct that.
Correct it or seal it, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
and then they have
And the manure issue?
club functions where kitchens are used, they have that addressed also.
Properly disposed
And
of.
they also address horse manure in the wetlands.
Okay.
And my understanding is that they recommend, or they will be recommending, that they compost it on site, just not in the wetlands.
Makes sense.
And we didn't even get into that with our
Right.
inspections of the site, so.
One thing I'd just like to point out, just reading this quickly, the letter that the health department wrote to the club starts by referencing the cease and desist order that we issued, and then goes on to say the camping facility is closed and shall remain closed until it comes into compliance with the public health code regulations. I just think we need to put on the record that we have no enforcement authority over the health code issues, and I just don't want there to be any misinterpretation on the part of the riding club as to, you know, what our enforcement action is vis-a-vis what the health
Where
department.
the
The
permit
enforcement
only.
action only pertains to the zoning
Right,
Permit,
issues.
right.
yeah.
Yeah, in a way, it would have been better if they hadn't even put in our cease and desist in their letter, because it doesn't pertain to them. You know,
Right.
it's a
They are-
separate
they're
issue
two separate
completely.
issues, yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
And they would have their own enforcement opportunities, but like I said, I just wanted to
Yes,
clarify
they have to address the health issues at both the local level and the state level.
Yes, yeah.
Right, because our cease and desist order did state that it cease and desist for the, until a permit,
Right.
so it is two separate.
And well, technically also, the health department isn't gonna sign off on the permit.
Right?
Right, until they do.
Okay. Item 4 on the agenda is Connecticut General Statute, eight 24 referral, Satkowski Farm, conservation easement to be granted to the town of Stafford from the Northern Connecticut Land Trust, Inc., location 91 Upper Road, map 27, lot 18.01, zone AAA.
Okay. Rick Dewey has generously volunteered to come down tonight to help explain this. I don't know, Rick, if you wanna go over, or we want me to do an introduction on it first?
You do an introduction,
Okay.
I'll put that in.
Parcel of land, in your packets, is a copy of the draft easement. And I believe you have a copy of the GIS showing it. It's the parcel across from the transfer station. One thing on that GIS mapping is there's a parcel on the right-hand side. That's not part of it. The GIS is incorrect there. So this rectangle up here is not part of it. Basically, they're looking, the Northern Connecticut Land Trust is the owner of the property now. And they're looking for, the town to have a conservation easement over the entire parcel with the exception of, the northeast corner, I believe it's described.
Northwest.
Northwest corner, which, and it's called out, purpose for that, but basically the intent is to, maintain this area as it sits today, and possibly, allow it to be farmed, leased out to be farmed, where possible. It's not for passive recreation by residents, it's basically to sit there undisturbed. It is consistent with the plan of conservation and development as far as preserving open space. I think it's actually a nice piece for us.
It was very, very generous of Satkowski family to do that.
A little background. It was a bargain sale. Originally, we were gonna get funding from the, federal, what is it, I'm trying to think of the, Farm Bureau, Federal Farm Bureau, and that funding never acquired. Their whole system was off for a while when we were trying for it. So we got funding from Boston Foundation, and they funded it, and we bought it. But their one requirement was that we put a conservation easement on it. So we went around asking for people if we could take the conservation, and a lot of people thought, we don't do that. So, or we didn't wanna do that, or whatever, they had a lot of reasons, but, so that's why we're looking to the town to just hold it. And all we're asking for is, it's just a very straightforward, simple easement that won't be developed. That 1 acre, or acre in the corner they was referring to was just in case, if we lease out the property, somebody wants to keep their equipment on it, they might wanna put a shed on it or something like that. So you want the ability to be able to do that. And that's what, that 1/4.
Oh, farming equipment.
Yeah, so, I guess
And that makes perfect sense.
Yep.
You have to have access.
and the whole easement is trying to, the intent was to make it as simple and straightforward as possible.
So, you need a vote from this board in order to
Yeah, it would be a vote by the commission to endorse the referral to adopt, to agree to the conservation easement.
And is the Board of Selectmen in agreement?
Yes, the minutes from the selectmen's meeting, they had some discussion on it, and again, they wanted to know what they were getting into before they,
Mhm.
agreed to it.
Right.
And before they can enter into the agreement, they need a referral from planning and zoning. But, yeah, I included the minutes there, there was some, like a little
Discussion.
I don't wanna say misunderstanding, but just, just people clarifying what was going on, and I think Rick explained it well tonight.
Well, Mr. Dewey stepped in at the
Yeah.
selectmen's meeting and straightened it out too, so they understood what was going on,
Mhm.
from what I read in the minutes.
And Rick, the Northern Connecticut Land Trust can't or does not hold easements, is,
You can't hold an easement on the property you own.
Right, on your own
So that was the problem.
okay.
If the town wanted to buy it, we would have held the easement.
I would make the motion that the town do the conservation easement, that we recommend the town does the conservation easement for 91 Upper Road, map 27, lot 18.01, zone AAA.
I will second that motion.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Item 5 on the agenda is Connecticut General Statute 8-24, referral cannon restoration, wall of honor monument, install concrete pad, restore cannon, painting, cleaning, and signage for Veterans Advisory Committee, location 0 Olympic Circle, map 48, lot 83.
Again, I included the minutes from the selectmen's meeting regarding this, where Richard Schaefer from the Veterans Advisory Committee made a presentation. They're looking to do a 7-foot by 14-foot concrete pad with an anchor point for the cannon, and then painting and cleaning as needed, and a plaque installed to explain the history of the cannon. All the work would be completed using private funds. And, this has been a long project for them. Might be some landscaping around also associated with that, but it is on town-owned land, and it, again, requires a referral.
Where's the cannon now, out of curiosity? Is it there, it just needs to
I
be?
think it's under the snow.
A little bit of snow.
Where everything else is.
So they just wanted the restoration of the pad, except.
Right, it's sitting on the ground right now. They want a
Okay.
pad for it to, it's gonna be mounted on a pad,
Okay.
anchored to a pad.
I just
should say.
didn't know, but when it was moved from up the street, that's where it went?
Yes,
No?
or no, it went over
To
to,
the
went
Legion.
to the Legion, and then over.
Then it got moved to Olympic
Right.
Circle.
Right. And,
They want the concrete because the ground is rotten again.
Damages the cannon itself.
It's rotten right along.
So that's a nice memorial there.
yeah, the
definitely.
wall of honor's there, and,
Yeah.
there,
Mhm.
Well, I would-
Where are they gonna point it?
has to point towards Italy. That's where it has to point.
Really?
I
Okay.
never knew that.
Yeah, it has to be pointed, because that's where it was used, is my understanding, or, there's a long story to that, I never knew that either. But, yeah, it always has to point towards Italy.
Hmm.
I think that's where they got it.
Pardon me?
I think that's where they got it.
Yes,
Mhm.
I would make that motion that we approve the restoration project for the cannon on Olympic Circle.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I would just make a comment that, again, I think what Dave's doing with the packages and the detail is excellent. And I just want to note that again, it's great to have all the documents laid out for us pretty clearly.
That's why we don't have that many questions, because it's all right there.
Agreed. All right, item 6 on the agenda, discussion and possible action review of zoning regulations.
just to drop back, we have the draft solar regulations, those have been forwarded to the attorney for review. We had what order you wanna do these in. We have the draft zone change report from Don Poland for the HI zone.
Actually, before we move on to that, just on the draft solar regulations, Jean, were you going to have those reviewed one last time by the?
We talked about it, and we don't need to,
Okay,
we're all set.
okay. So as long as we get the sign off from outside counsel, then we're.
I mean, and we have to go through a public hearing
Right,
anyway.
right.
So if there's tiny tweaks after,
What what the attorney's primarily looking at is the, was it Serpa, is that the
Pura, yeah,
Pura concerns?
sure, of course.
Just with the, that there's no conflicts or that, we're covered in that respect. That's-
No, I totally agree, that's a good thing to do.
If I can get that acronym in my head. The
Pura.
last meeting, I thought it was Prius, I don't know.
Okay, that was the only question I had on the solar.
In Don Poland's draft report, he had some areas highlighted. I got one typo, which I'll point out to him later, but the main things that I think we needed to think about was, on page 9, under appendix A. What it appears that he did was stay pretty close with the highway business zone standards, in regards to setbacks and so forth. A lot of things are under section 2.20 there, he has, the zoning, line is 300 feet back off the street, similar to the industrial zone, a little more than highway business. Which, I have to ask him about that because our zone extends beyond that, on the south side of the road.
Oh.
I have to clarify that with him. But I think that's only if it's not indicated, if a distance isn't indicated, then you use the 300. So that might just be, covering ourselves
Okay,
for that.
yeah,
Next section, he's just adding that to the schedule of permitted uses.
right,
And then within that schedule, that follows the same as both highway business and industrial for the most part. If you look through those special use permit, primarily for everything with the exception of funeral home, retail / personal services, and restaurant. Now, the retail, you have potential for a good-sized retail operation. Now, right now, that's site plan approval, similar to highway business zone.
yep,
So if there's an issue with that, now's the time to address that.
Yeah, I think it should be a special use permit so that we have some, authority to not have all of one type of business along that new corridor that's going to come into effect. Otherwise, how else can we address it? If it's just a site plan, we have to approve it by a site plan.
Right. Well, again, he threw these out, I don't think these are necessarily recommendations, that's why they're in red for us to consider.
Right, and I had another note too, so I would like to see special use permit for the retail, restaurants, personal services, and parking, see note A. A rental car place, we talked about that, and that's not in that permitted, rental cars. Remember? We don't have that in the schedule. Rental car lots, I guess you would call it,
See note
unless it's somewhere else and I couldn't find it. It wasn't the private garage for motor vehicles.
And that wouldn't fall under auto sales?
A. No, and that,
No,
auto sales is another thing we have to look at under the, different thresholds of auto sales. But,
Mhm.
but no, that's a good point. I know there was a rental car place in there for, there wasn't very many cars, but,
There was at one time, yeah. I think perhaps it should be added to the,
List of uses.
uses, definitely.
Um,
And probably it should be a special use also. Cause just like the parking is by a special use.
I mean, what you could end up with, what you could potentially end up under parking is, transient vehicles between dealers
Yeah,
or auctions,
Right.
So that could be under the parking, and that's already has special use.
Right.
You just have to add it,
right,
okay.
but I think
Whatever.
you're right, rental car parking maybe is kind of different than
Yes,
Right.
parking wholesale cars or something like that,
Yeah,
fleet
yeah.
cars or something.
so rental, I'm thinking like Enterprise or, one of those,
Or if Uber comes to town.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well, you
the
don't
world's
know.
changing,
It
you
is
just don't
changing.
know what's gonna happen.
China kids.
so, and as I'm going through these different towns and I'm seeing all of these different things, I'm thinking, ooh, and I go and look and we don't address it. So I just thought I'd bring it to light about that. So I circled the special use for retail and then the rental car place.
Yeah,
and-
I agree, yeah.
And that's about all I could come up with.
Hotel is permitted in that, as well as highway business zones, and that's the other one that.
Yes.
No.
No, that's what we were just talking about.
I don't know, do you think outdoor storage, fuel storage, or contractor's yard should be included in the permitted use? For that particular
Probably
area?
not.
It's allowed in highway business zone.
They're pretty darn important. I mean, you can't, so many businesses, without a yard, you can't have the business.
I mean, but
Well,
there's
how
other areas within the highway business zone that's permitted.
Yes,
For this particular area,
it should be.
it should be included, or? that's-
Well,
How do we define outdoor storage though?
It's not permitted in
don't.
highway business, is that what we're saying?
no, it is permitted in highway business.
Yes,
But it's not in this
Right.
new highway.
it is, right
It's in
now
the-
it is.
In the
this
highway
new-
industrial.
Right,
Okay.
and I don't know, if you have manufacturing and stuff, and maybe retail, maybe you get some restaurants, and then you have a contractor's yard behind it, I don't.
Well, I think it's okay, and a lot's gonna depend on how it's done, and a good example would be, Ketty's old funeral home. It's beautiful, and I mean, it really is a contractor's yard back there, in effect. And I don't have an issue with it, I mean, I guess
I'm
it all
thinking
depends on
more
how
of a
it's.
heavy construction contractor with,
There is a point, yeah, okay, I see your
Mhm, mhm.
point. We'd have to define it,
I mean, it is a special use permit, but,
yeah.
right now, so I mean, but it,
But you need that support. And I also think, and if we look at our plan of conservation and development, the whole mixed use idea, you're gonna have business, you're gonna have residential, you're gonna have a contractor's yard. They're not always perfectly compatible, I agree,
I
but
take that back, it's permitted in industrial, not in highway business.
not
So-
highway business, just
Right.
industrial.
Right, so that leaves you with the industrial
Did he,
parks.
but he
Well,
has it
yeah.
in his new.
He has it in this new zone, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
The
it's
outdoor.
important, it's how we regulate it, and, oh yeah, outdoor storage, fuel storage,
so
contractor's
it's
yard.
blank on highway business, which means it's not permitted, and then you have,
Right.
Right.
that's what I thought I
was
said,
not
it was
correct,
not
yeah.
permitted, yeah, it's not permitted.
Emmett Collins.
Well, then, in the same discussion, the use just above it, wholesale storage, freight terminal, commercial processing, that similarly is not currently allowed in highway business.
Oh, you're right.
Right, I think Cindy, when this schedule was redone, and Jack, you can help me on this, was that at that time, the highway business did not incorporate that type of a business, so that's why we put it in industrial zones.
I'm afraid
But
we're,
things may have changed since we have done that, that's what I'm saying.
I'm afraid we're being too restrictive. of course, the definition of a contractor's yard, and Dave's point is a good one, and he's been in business forever, so he knows what could happen, the type of heavy equipment you could get. And it could be an issue, but
Well,
a
you could have-
contractor's yard is,
I'll give you a few examples. You could have a contractor's yard, like you have across the street up Middle River Drive, there's a
Yep.
contractor's yard up
Yep.
there with heavy equipment, that's
Yep.
an industrial zone. You could have a guy, and this is the problem I have interpreting the schedule of uses. Say a guy comes in and says, I wanna set up 4 or 5 bins and sell colored stone and maybe some mulch. And I have a backhoe there to load it onto people's trailers and stuff, and I have a truck, cause I do deliveries too. Is that a contractor's yard, or is that, agricultural goods being sold, is that, you know, or retail?
Stones like that.
Another reason why we didn't permit it, Gene, was because we had a lot of highway business zones surrounded by residential,
but I think
and
that,
that still is
Yeah.
the same.
I mean, that's fine if you wanna keep it, I just raised the issue.
That's still the
that's all.
same, I mean, you know, you don't want 2 or 3 residential homes at a contractor's yard or a
I-
freight terminal next to you, do you?
well, not a freight terminal. But
Well,
a
that's
con-
what you
but-
would do.
But a contractor's yard, yes. I think,
Fuel
know-
storage too, yeah,
well,
that's in there.
every house that gets built, you need the materials. You need the trucks, you need the gravel, you need the, everything, that's part of it, the septic sand and on and on and on.
That is correct.
You know, we want all that stuff in our life when we need it, but we don't wanna see it and, you know, tuck it away out of the way. I mean, I'm thinking more mixed use. Now, I know there is a limit though. There is a point where it becomes a real nuisance for someone, and giant equipment would be. But,
So when you go to the wholesale storage, freight terminal, commercial processing, you put it in a highway business zone, there are many residential areas within a highway business zone. And
true?
that was the reasoning behind that one,
Right,
and of
and
course,
this particular zone, other than, there's 2 existing houses within that zone.
yeah,
And once they stop being used as residential homes, they can't go back to, you know, if they change to a
If they
professional
sell
office or
to a
something like that.
business or an
Right.
office, okay.
Yeah, so.
They
so-
can't go back.
And there's no, this particular area, there's, well, the exception of the northeast side, there's the old Vale House, there's no residential homes, because you got the railroad tracks stopping.
right, but on the other side,
On
there's
the other
many.
side, on the
There's
north
a lot
side,
of
there's
them.
a couple
Yeah.
built,
There's quite a few homes along that, right up to West Stafford School, over, right up to West Stafford.
well, on the other side of it, yeah, but
But
I'm
you're
talking,
talking
just
this
this
side.
HI zone.
The
is-
HI zone, no, I'm getting back to the highway business,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's really mainly, once you get past the big Y, a lot of it is residential with the businesses in between. But, which is fine, businesses in between, it's just what type of business, Gene?
Well, I don't see a definition for contractor's yard. Maybe we need 2 designations. You know, small contractor's yards and large contractor's yard, I don't know. But for me, the small business with some machinery is one thing. You know, I don't know,
You're gonna have to define what's in each of those
Right.
yards.
yeah.
well, that's gonna
And then
be,
you have to come up with every definition
well, that's gonna be
in the
right, and
world.
that's gonna be coming up, you know, it's gonna, as best we can, excuse me, clarifying these. Right now, if you wanna permit it for now to adopt this, you know, that's fine, I just raised the issue if we're making any changes.
You got a contractor's
I'm
yard on
against it
Huck
right
Yard,
now.
right below Rosie, right on the curb. There's all kinds of equipment in there. Right where the old silo is.
Sure, I know what you mean, yeah.
Yep, yep.
I see the problem is that we put Dave as CEO in a bind. We have to define these things, we have to make it clear for him. I mean, Jack, a man that's been in business forever, what do you think the contractor's yard, I mean, can be absolutely crucial for someone to stay in business? Is it disturbing the neighbor? At what point is that?
Most of the time, the contractor's equipment is on site, that's who's making his money.
moving from site to site otherwise, that's a good
Except,
point.
except for the winter, you know.
Okay,
Well, if they're not working.
that's a very good, point.
I mean, they don't wanna
primarily
leave them in
buffer
the yard because it doesn't make any money.
doesn't make money.
It's primarily a buffer issue. You know, if you've got sufficient buffer and you don't have heavy equipment running, you know, at all hours of the night, I mean, those are really the issues you're gonna have
True.
with residential adjacent to those kinds of uses.
I guess what I'm thinking is, in order to push this along, because it's important to get this
Yeah,
through the process right now, perhaps we could deal with defining it at a later date when we're working.
But
With all the
If an application
regulations.
comes in, it would be a special use permit, and we would encourage pre-application meetings.
So you're saying on the wholesale storage to put it SU and or just the contractor's yard, SU, in highway business?
It
Or
is
just-
SU right now.
They're both, that's you.
No, in highway business, there's nothing, you're not
Right, no,
permitted.
I'm just talking about the HI zone,
Oh,
I'm not even.
no, I
gonna-
think we just keep that right here
Yeah,
and
I'm
we
not
work
touching
on
that.
the others
Right.
after.
Right.
It's just so we can get this
okay.
pushed along.
I mean, everything Poland did in here, I'm fine with.
Mm-hmm.
No, I like his explanation, and he brought in, the POCD and quoted it and everything. I mean, I think he did a very good job in here. I don't have any issues.
Dave, are you good with the 4.32 under highway
Yes,
industrial?
that's what I'm looking at right now,
Yeah.
that's fine. It's all the same as highway business with the exception of the lot area,
Yes.
which is in between highway
Mhm.
business and industrial,
Mm-hmm.
smack in the middle, so that's,
Okay.
I'm fine with that. You know, that, because there is the potential of some of those lots being subdivided.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
And highway industrial is about 20 feet shorter than industrial, okay?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
The rest of his things were just incorporating it into various,
Right,
Other-
realize
not
that,
adding it, so.
yeah.
I can, what I will do is, let him know those changes and clarify that, the first distance, and then maybe have him attend our next meeting if possible. Don Bowen.
Okay, so
Yeah,
what is
be
the
great.
plan going on from here? So what's next, so we can get this through?
We refer it to CROG, and then we
Oh,
would set up
okay.
a public hearing.
Okay, now, just this, or solar, this, and the architectural? I'd like to see all three at
Well,
once.
or we need the opinion back from the attorney for solar.
That's right.
But I mean, as soon as we get that, and we get.
Yeah, if you wanna do them all at once.
All at once, don't
I
you
mean,
want to?
some are gonna
Cindy?
hold up others, so if you wanna do them all at once, or
Well,
Well,
the zone change is number one priority, I
priority,
think.
yeah.
I can couple that with the zone change here, which is
Yeah.
just correcting,
I think that's what he's.
you know,
You can
here.
couple what?
I have another zone change application for the area around here that
Mhm.
was incorrectly, it was mislabeled on the new zoning
Oh,
map.
okay.
Note,
So,
note A,
but-
we talked about, is in the regulations at the bottom on page 31.
Okay.
It has to do with all parking areas.
Yeah, the note A, you mean, yeah.
Yep.
The parking requirements.
Yep.
Mhm.
But I think that, as fast as we can
We
get
move ahead with
this,
this,
Real
and then
quick,
solar can follow right after, you know.
solar and architecture,
Yeah, yeah.
because you know it's coming real quick.
but this is,
Okay.
priority would be the zoning, the big zone changes, the
Highway industrial.
highway industrial, and to me,
Okay.
in my mind, for sure. Does the board feel that way too? Highway industrial is our
I do.
priority.
Because I can also, I'll talk with Don, but I may be able to do the referral in the interim, make these changes, and then we can send it to CROG, and they post it for any comments from abutting towns. And then that will be going on while we're waiting for the next meeting, and then, you know, we'll maybe be able to move right after.
That's
Sound
great,
good?
great.
I don't know if, you know, I'll talk with Don, I don't know if it would be necessary to have him attend the public hearing. I don't think it's that,
I wouldn't think so.
I think
Now, if we can answer the question.
Yeah.
you can answer,
Yeah.
you can answer.
so. I think it's more important that we're all on the same page with him,
Mhm.
so that we're able to answer the question, you know?
Absolutely.
Okay. On, Nancy had
I revised this somewhat. the architectural. I revised it by adding the highway industrial.
Okay, you incorporated that.
I did. And I added some exterior, building materials. Basically, that's about it, but I see you have a note
Yeah, I have a couple.
on 1A about the building,
Yeah.
no visible elevation. It brought me back to, one of the comments at the public hearing regarding Dollar General and the houses around it and behind it. That was quite an issue.
In my comments, I know that's what you were referring to.
Yes,
And I don't know if we wanna modify that to say where it abuts a residential property.
so, let's see.
I mean, it's just that you're saying that no side can look like the back, and there's gotta be a back to a building, so.
Well, yeah,
Back to every building.
okay. If we're envisioning, say over by the big Y,
Well, right,
let me finish, okay. And you have a business here, and then you're gonna have a business down here, and then you're gonna have a business over there. That's not residential, but you still don't want the back of the building to look horrible for the business that might be behind it.
mhm.
I think it should stay the way it is.
Well, what I had in my comments was considering, screening, like either fencing or vegetative screening. You're gonna have areas, there's gonna be service areas where they have to loading
I
area.
addressed that, I addressed that.
Well, it's gonna be on one side of the building, so,
I addressed the screening on any,
I know, but you're saying that in the very first thing, that no visible elevation can look like the back of a building. So, and there's gonna be an area where,
right, the building does not have to look plain, well, for example, like Dollar General. But I did say the no outside storage or shall be permitted unless specifically authorized, shall be screened in such a manner as the board may require. So I'm
like
leaving
the
it up
outside
to the
storage,
board.
but I mean, you're talking, back to a building, there could be overhead doors, there's gonna be a dumpster probably, maybe mechanical
A
units.
lot of them would have deliveries back there.
You know, I don't,
But
I
if
think
you
it's
could-
worded very vague, cause somebody's gonna say, well, what's the back of the building look like?
Like
Right here.
plain,
One
plain,
A.
you know,
The facades.
it's number one,
Yeah, okay.
1A. So you're suggesting that you just put I see,
Well,
I
I'm
don't
just.
think just residential area, because what
Okay.
I'm envisioning is you're not just gonna have one business and 2-3 acres behind it, because,
I just think it needs
you
to
know,
be
I
worded
think we can
differently.
have almost like, 2 or 3 separate businesses, and you might have like sidewalks, and you can have benches and things, and you just want the buildings to be, to look very New England-y, I guess you could put it that way. And if you have a back of a building that's plain, no windows, I don't know. I could be wrong. That's why I'm throwing
Maybe you
that out
say,
there.
architectural review by the commission pertains to
Well,
all sides of the building.
I-
I don't know.
it kinda says that anyway. If you look at C, all exterior building materials, high quality, including masonry, blah, 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 wood clad, it never says one side can be different. One part of it, so it kind of answers it without adding it in 1A, I think. It pretty much says,
So right now, we allow CMU units, and now you don't wanna allow them?
No concrete block.
That's
Well,
right.
and then the other question too is you're not allowing prefab steel buildings.
No.
But then I don't think we can apply this to industrial areas. Because, I mean, that's the only kind of buildings that are built
Prefab
in industrial.
or concrete.
Right. That was one of the first notes I had, and it's
It's
just,
like if a person wanted to put in a contractor's yard, their office would can't be concrete block or metal
No.
panels, they're not gonna build it, they're gonna go build it somewhere else.
Another town.
So what is the zone going to be from the trestle all the way up to West Stafford?
Well, it's-
That
Right now,
corridor.
it stays as it is, it's highway business with some residential areas.
So it would not ever be turned into highway industrial.
No, the highway industrial is for that one area outlined only.
Then I agree with Cindy then, all right. My concern was the new corridor
Yeah,
that's gonna be built up. That's where I was coming
Mhm.
from, Cindy,
Right.
yeah. So,
But
no,
we
I
have
do
nothing to-
understand what you're saying, but I just wanna ensure that in highway business, central business, all of those, that you don't get these ugly steel buildings and concrete building blocks, you know, to look like New England, like I put up in the requirements.
Yeah. I know
New
what you mean.
England,
I know
tradition
what you
of
mean.
New England. But I think you're right, if it's going to be industrial and an industrial park, of course they're gonna have prefabricated steel or concrete or something like that. But,
As I mentioned, my desk had eaten my copy before I got to go over this
yeah,
with
so are
Dennis.
you making the notes to change that?
I'm making notes, but I really would like to run this by Dennis, since he knows more about the building components and
Right,
stuff.
but show them the change then,
Yeah.
I don't know, you
So we're
can,
taking industrial out up top.
Yes.
Or you,
well, not all of it.
or you could put an exception on C to indicate industrial areas, except.
Except.
in-
Only on
in-
C,
Yep,
except in
industrial.
highway
Highway
industrial, HI, okay.
No, we want just to accept industrial.
I don't think it should be carte blanche highway, and I think the buildings can look nice. I think the colors are very important.
Nancy, I
Yeah,
disagree, I really think we need to eliminate industrial from this. I mean, if you look at a typical industrial park, you're going to have basically butler buildings that are not gonna have, you know, the kind of roof lines that, and variations that this would require, or the coloring. I think this has a great application to, you know, to the highway business, to the
Right.
corridor we're talking about. I
That
really-
was my focus, Cindy, really. My
Yeah.
focus was the highway business, the new corridor that's going to be if the natural gas goes through to get some new businesses in, but also to have them look like a traditional New England architecture, like other towns do, which I pulled some of this from.
Gina, are you familiar, what I'm afraid of is excluding materials that I'm not familiar with, that may have the look that you like, that go against the regulation.
Well, we can, like you say, we'll get Dennis to weigh in, but, you know,
Yeah.
concrete block, you know what CMU is?
Right.
Concrete masonry unit,
Right,
which is concrete block.
right.
I mean, they really are the same thing.
I wanted to clarify that with you because it is permitted right now,
What got Dennis crazy
Right.
was the color.
was that if you paint a split face block, as opposed to having the intrinsic color that goes right into the concrete batch, right at the plant, it's a permanent color that goes through the whole thing. If it wears a little bit, it's still brown or whatever.
Yeah.
Although Dennis is not a fan of split face block, period, concrete block in general. But there are concrete products that are better than others.
Right.
So
That's
it gets
all that's what I
complicated.
wanna
Still
run by him,
concrete.
especially since he's gonna be reviewing that, which we need to discuss
So,
the issue for the last.
But there
meeting.
are incredibly beautiful concrete products.
Right,
You can get a concrete countertop in your kitchen,
mhm.
that'll knock your socks off. So it depends what we're talking about.
We're
I mean,
talking,
not all concrete's
no.
bad.
But
Depends.
if we take out the highway,
To industrial.
industrial,
just take out industrial.
then, because that's about who
Just
would be doing
industrial.
the concrete block. A retail, I think they can do the siding,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
you don't need a concrete block building, for a restaurant or for, you know what I'm
Well,
saying?
you have exterior building materials, will be high quality natural
Yeah.
materials, including masonry stone.
Stone, definitely.
The next thing is split faced block.
Yeah.
That's concrete,
But
unless you don't mean that.
it's different than
It
the
is a
CMU,
specialized block.
right,
You know what it is though?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's still a CMU, it's still a concrete masonry unit. What they do is they mold it together and literally split it. So the face is uneven
On
and
the
has
inside.
flutes on it,
Right,
but it's still a concrete product, it's really,
but
it looks
it's
different.
aesthetically nice.
It can look different, exactly, I
I'm
agree.
going for the aesthetically nice look.
I see what you mean.
That's what I'm going for, something that is so pleasing to the eye that you wanna stop and go in and buy something.
Gene, most of your, split face block has a special stone in it, like,
Okay,
that gives it its texture and color, not just plain concrete.
okay,
Uh,
I believe you. Huh. Well, then Dennis is really an authority we should talk
So
to.
right now, we're just removing
We're
just
taking out-
industrial zone.
Just
It's gonna apply
highway,
to all the other business.
highway industrial,
No, just industrial,
And
highway industrial you wanted.
just industrial, right, districts, yep,
Okay,
okay, industrial. I agree, definitely. So
What else
Cindy,
do we
you
have?
really think that the rest of it is fine as long as it's out of industrial?
I had a couple of other comments. I mean, going back to, I don't know where we've landed on the additional sentence that you included, the rear of the structure shall be pleasing.
Oh, yeah, we gotta go with that.
That and we're under one facade looks like the back of a building.
Mhm.
Those, I mean, Dave was alluding to this, but, and I understand where you're coming from, and it may just be a matter of how we describe it, but both of those, the way they're written, are so subjective that there's
Okay.
really no
I
way.
think they just need to be
So
worded differently, that's all.
A needs to just add, residential, you said.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
Mhm.
I think I don't know the wording right now off the top of my head, but
Can you work on that one then?
yeah.
I'm
And
not sure.
I think Dennis, cause him and I started having a discussion about this
Oh, you
and
did?
but then we got sidetracked and back to it.
So.
Then I couldn't show
start-
me exact wordage, the
So,
wording, so,
star that one,
yeah.
the back of the building.
well, let me throw 2 cents in there on that. I think under facades in 1C, we cover it. We don't say you can do the back of the building differently. We say the whole building needs to be high-quality materials, et cetera.
But if you leave it at that and it's a special use permit, you can,
I mean, it doesn't say you can do the back
Okay,
in metal or something
because
else.
you're gonna have, I understand exactly what you're saying, Nancy, where you may have one building behind another. Say it's a
we
restaurant
could,
and
we
you want it to
definitely
look
could,
attractive, we see them in
Right.
other places.
right.
And then you're gonna have some buildings that back up to the railroad tracks that are never gonna be developed,
So
something
who
like that.
cares?
So on that, in
Right.
that instance, right, who cares?
So we have to write it that
But I
way.
think Gene's right, that C may cover that.
Okay, but he wants to take out, putting, writing it out, just putting all exterior building materials will be of high-quality natural materials, to the commission's discretion, or is that what you wanted
I want Dennis
Review.
to weigh in on that,
Okay.
on C first,
on C?
because he has such experience with that. What do you think, Doug? How does it word to you right now? Because you have a lot of experience with building materials.
I don't see it as a problem.
Okay. You think it's worded okay the way it is?
So it's really the
Can we
back of the
define natural
building,
brick?
Cindy?
I'm sorry?
It's the back of the buildings that definitely talk to Dennis about, A.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And C,
And,
he's gonna
no,
check.
I would like to see Dennis's opinion on C also.
Yep,
And we may end up leaving it the way it is, but I'd like him to weigh in on that.
And Jack just made a good point. Definition of
Natural brick. I
natural
don't know what
brick.
natural brick is.
natural brick is brick.
There's a lot of brick. What's
Yeah.
natural brick? I don't know what natural brick means.
Well, it's not that prefabricated where you stick it on.
Well, we know that just happened, as Dave told us
Well,
last
we're gonna,
meeting.
yeah, we have to discuss
Mhm.
Oh,
that.
we're gonna,
That
we're gonna,
changed, yeah.
oh, okay, there's already a change.
Okay, it's not
Okay.
the artificial that you paste onto a building.
That's what you meant.
Natural brick is brick.
Right,
You-
and that's,
you meant
that's
that.
why I want terminology from Dennis, who knows the terminology.
Okay, so
That's what we need.
star the brick, okay.
Well, and then we also
So
have.
any color of brick is natural?
There's great.
Gray
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm
red.
saying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right,
is
well,
it?
that's,
I
that's
mean, you
what-
could say
Natural
natural
brick.
brick is red, period. And that's what I'm just asking.
No, you're right,
No,
Jack.
you're right, and that, those are, because
And-
exactly the questions
and
or,
There's
the
different,
things-
there's different sizes.
Yeah.
There's jumbo brick,
yep.
Mhm.
which to someone might not look like a brick, it might look like, more like a concrete
Concrete.
block. And they're gonna say,
You're
that's
gonna
not
argue
brick.
over semantics, right?
Yeah.
Right, right.
So you're right,
Yeah.
we need those clear definitions as in that other case.
Now, the lighting issue at CVS, underneath, does
Yeah,
that have to
Nancy,
go
I'm sorry,
on this?
before we move off the materials, I
Uh-huh.
think the other thing we need, I mean, I don't even know if it's possible, but I think we need to at least consider leaving room for the development of new building materials, because, you know, as you said, things are changing all the time, and.
Or as approved by the commission at the end.
I
Yeah.
like that, I've used that several times, I noticed in several other regulations, it was at the discretion of the commission, because situations are different.
Cindy's
And we've
absolutely
seen
right.
that all the
Materials,
time.
materials
So-
develop, I mean,
Right.
there are plastic
Right.
Yeah,
materials.
you'll have
Better.
LED screens that look
That
like brick, oh, you don't
beautiful.
like brick, it's wood, there you go.
No, you're right, Cindy, definitely, yeah.
Some of the new plastics that have been around for years, where you can do columns and soffits and fascias of a material that will never rot, doesn't need painting, and is permanent.
You see the house that just got sided up by Jack's house, up by the hollow,
Yeah.
with the siding that looks like the shingles.
Oh, I gotta go take a look.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
I think that's a
And the
permanent
roofing stuff
product.
that they come out with now, the metal roofs that look like shingles, and
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Those
Good
are-
idea.
So Cindy made a good point.
If we add at the commission board's approval, whatever. But now that lighting, that doesn't go under the architectural, have you addressed that
No, I think it's already addressed in the,
in the regs?
yeah.
Okay, because I did notice, I went through town at midnight and the lights were blaring, and you said they were gonna go off when the store was closed, they were not,
Yes, I'm well aware of that from the neighbors.
okay,
Um,
and they are
What the-
very bright,
Yeah,
I
well,
can tell you.
now, yeah, what about St. Edward's lights, did you see those?
They're not as light as the CVS was all the way around.
They have LED lights and all those lamp posts in the front.
Yeah, really?
But with
No,
the
they
issue,
never-
with the, I never noticed it either
Because
until this
I-
complaint came up.
I never go by the church at midnight, you know, I
Yeah,
usually
They,
go the other way.
what the issue has been is they have, I think it's called the EMS, Electrical Management System, for all the CVS stores. And they're run, I believe, out of Texas or something. And it's for efficiency, they're programmed to shut off at a certain time and so on and so forth. If an alarm goes off in the store, all the lights are triggered. There's been problems, they're working out the bugs on the alarm that's either being set improperly or something's triggering it and no one's aware of it to disarm it, to shut the lights off. The lights won't shut off until it's disarmed. That's why they've been staying on. And they provided me with what nights they were on all night and what night they weren't. I have a neighbor that wants to send me time-stamped photos.
No, that's not
So-
necessary, but they,
Yeah, But
yeah.
no, it's,
You didn't
you know, I
say-
didn't know the store ran like that, and I couldn't understand why signage was, you know, connected to all the lighting going on. I could understand the store lights going on, but it's probably all or nothing. But that's being worked out, and that's, you talk about future materials or technologies, you know,
Mhm.
I don't think that needs to be addressed in here. I
Not
think-
in here, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because I remember we talked, Cindy, about the color of the signs on the
Mhm.
outside of the building, so I put that in.
Yeah.
And that's at the discretion of the board.
One other question I had was under item 3, you have refuse under storage of refuse. That's called out for, in that other, I think it's 4.64, the dumpster areas being screened,
Mhm.
so I don't,
Okay, I guess.
I mean, it does say unless specifically authorized, but you can have a dumpster outside.
Well, I guess B was loading docks. That I could not find addressed to be screened. So I added B.
Right, that's what I was trying to tell you about the back of the building on the first page. But in the first thing, I understand the storage of materials or products, but you have or refuse. I don't know if refuse should be kept there, because refuse would be in the dumpster, which is addressed under,
All right, so just take out the word refuge?
yeah, or
Okay.
refuse. Yeah.
Or refuse, okay. Otherwise, I think this may help us in order to,
Oh, definitely.
Nancy, one other
Mhm.
comment under roofs, under 2A.
yeah,
The second sentence, roofs shall be pitched to allow for proper drainage and shall include dormers, cupolas, multiple gables, and varied gable orientation. Should that be or instead of and? Because I don't think we can require a builder to put all of those. I mean, the intent is obviously to have the roof line variable, right?
Right, cause that was one of our
Yeah.
issues, so where did you want or
But
after,
or after multiple gables.
multiple gables, or
and change that.
varied, okay,
Or
yeah.
varied gable
Gotcha.
orientation.
Mhm.
Good one. Yeah.
So Dave, are you
Yeah.
getting all these, okay, you're
So
gonna
include
redo it?
dormers, yeah.
Cupolas.
Cupolas,
Cupolas
multiple
or-
gables, or varied
or-
gable, yeah,
instead
you're
of
right,
and,
Cindy,
or.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So no more flat looking roofs, they can be flat, but they've gotta be hidden.
And you want screening of,
On all
I would
sides of
say,
the
yeah, I
building?
would say
Refuse,
mechanical
right, or
units,
refuse.
Oh, okay,
instead of
and do
HVAC,
screen mechanical
because you could have a
units?
restaurant with,
Oh, okay,
Something that is not HVAC,
Okay.
right?
mechanical units, okay. Because I had an issue with, there was
Oh, you're right.
one
Yeah, you're
recent that would not shield
You know,
the mechanicals, and even though our regulations stated they had to, they didn't. Oh, well,
while we're on this
yeah.
topic, the issue with Family Dollar submitted building plans, and the materials were different than what Dennis and I felt was presented to the commission, and Dennis sent the plans back. And they're going to be submitting plans that we're probably gonna end up bringing in here, of doing that, what's the clapboard like CVS, what's that names, those panels, you know what it is, the concrete clapboard, like they did for CVS. They're gonna do a look similar to CVS, they're gonna do brick up to, say, the bottom of the windows, and
Okay.
that clapboard,
Okay.
as opposed to the split block.
I think it looks very nice, let's see this.
I can't remember the same clapboards at CVS, it's used.
Yeah, I know what you mean by the material, I get that.
But we're waiting, we said we need to see it. We're not talking about it over the phone.
Want the material to look at,
Mhm.
especially after that first attempt at, as Ned's, we
And
call it
that's,
fake brick.
and that's
is what they
exactly,
came in.
and that's why we need to be careful about the
The brick.
semantics
Specifics.
here,
Mhm.
right?
In this same section, under, on page 49, there's a table in there that talks about light business, highway business, industrial. I think that needs to change to reflect the same thing you have on the top of the first paragraph. It's on page 49 in your,
29,
yeah.
What are we-
29 or 49?
What are we looking at, Doug?
I don't know.
Landscape.
Landscaping, yeah.
requirements, right.
Oh,
And that needs to change to reflect what we're saying in that paragraph. Because you're calling it now local business, highway business. Perhaps we need to add something to the table.
Well, he added HI under, for that zone, that's part of that change, is adding highway industrial. You're talking under number three?
Yeah.
perimeter
he-
landscape?
He's got it in there in his,
Mm,
Yeah, Don has it,
mhm.
on page 12 of Don's proposal, he added it to the bottom there.
Oh, yes, perimeter and on number 5 too. Landscape buffer requirements.
Oh, yeah, he picked it up.
Yeah,
so that,
yeah.
Okay.
I
good,
did.
good catch though, Doug, but it looks like he's got it.
Yep.
So
Oh,
you'll,
I'm sorry, one other question I had. Under the main paragraph for architectural requirements,
mhm,
we're not allowing parking to be in front of buildings any longer and essentially moving the building closer.
That's, yeah,
Do we then
Right.
need to change our setback regs on those to accommodate that? 'Cause I think we started
will
talking
be
about
required to
that.
be placed in front of the lot to include sidewalk extent to the building.
remember that was that walk you
Right,
had and
right.
everything, and so I put that in
New
there.
construction, I think, I don't know if you wanna say required, because there may be topographic considerations that would be encouraged, maybe.
Well, encouraged isn't very strong. I think there should be another word. It should have some latitude, but encouraged doesn't make them do it.
Somewhere,
Well,
somewhere.
if it's required, Cindy's right, we need to change the
We're gonna
setback.
have to change our setbacks then.
Well, isn't that what we wanted?
Well, no, that's, yeah, I understand, we just gotta get it so it's all in agreement, that's,
Yeah.
Right, that's what we wanted though,
Yeah.
definitely.
Another good catch, though.
Mhm.
Well, then
I
just,
mean-
I mean, just just kind of throwing this out there, you know, I'm trying to decide whether it should be discretionary or not. I'm just thinking, if you're talking about that, you know, the highway industrial corridor that we're talking about, we already have a number of existing uses that are set back and have the parking lots in front.
yeah, they could all get flattened though, you know, they're not necessarily gonna reuse the
And
building.
I was gonna-
So,
Okay.
I think we have to come up with a way where we encourage them, if they put them forward, the setback is this.
Well, if-
Otherwise, it's,
I also said that no parking areas shall be in the front of the building, so wouldn't that eliminate them from,
they would wanna maximize the side and rear area.
Right, so then they would probably put the building in the front, correct, if there's no parking allowed? Like Dollar General's having the parking in the front.
Well, they both are, yeah.
Yeah, they both are in Family Dollar. This way, if there's no parking allowed in the front of the building, then of course they're gonna move the building up in order to put the
Right, but
parking in the back.
but the building still has to be 50 feet off, 55 feet off the road,
Mhm.
according to our
Yeah.
regulations.
Uh-huh,
That's the,
Well, then, and the other question, and I don't know the answer to this, is this going to discourage certain developers if they've got a, you know, if they've got a certain, you know, footprint for
yeah.
building, are
prototype.
they gonna, right, are they gonna look, you know, because I think we had the discussion with Don that the whole reason that most retail buildings are set back and the parking is in front is because then you can see the building, you can see other, you know, customers there.
well, that's why I think it's very important to have the retail, et cetera, under special use, because then we could allow in
We need to
circumstances
come
like
up with a
that.
mechanism that allows you to change
review.
the setback
Right,
by this commission without going for a variance or.
and all that, right.
I like that, yeah.
See-
I have to give that some thought.
We need to help the businesses, but at the same time
Right,
to
the way-
try to make it
What Mark, as
know
Mark
what I'm saying.
Fenton described it, is not only, you know, as people see other people in the store, it has a traffic calming effect, because
Right.
it narrows the view for a car driving, you know,
right.
that they tend to slow down because buildings are closer to the road.
So this is a perfect opportunity
To
to get
incorporate
that
that, right.
incorporated.
I think it's
But
just
how?
a means of having a mechanism that allows the commission to, during a special use permit, to say, okay, you're gonna be close to the road and your setback's 10, or have it in the regulations, because, you know, they work out a plan before they even
Right.
come before you, so.
We can be flexible too without giving away the store, you know what I mean? Because look at the Culver's group. They certainly didn't wanna do what they did, but they did, because they wanted to develop that property there, definitely. And I think the building came out very nice, the parking's good. I see a lot of cars in there now and people walking, so that's what I envisioned when I redid this.
Yeah, I agree with you,
you
yeah.
know?
We have to push to get what we want.
That also,
In my mind, we have to do that. If, obviously, you could probably get
You know,
more
right now-
business by letting them do anything they wanna do, but that's the whole point of the zoning.
you go back to Don Poland's report,
Yeah.
front yard landscape requirements 30 feet. So, and the setback, front yard setback is 30,
Where are you?
55, page 11 and 12.
Page 11, yeah.
Well, maybe you can,
Oh, I'm with you.
you can come up with a solution with Dennis and,
I think we just need a mechanism where we can allow it to be the front, the landscape setback.
It would be in here. Oh, the landscape, not
Well,
in
keep the-
architecture.
Well, no, it would be under your guidelines,
Okay.
some kind of mechanism that, you know, the commission encourages, building in the front of the parcel. In those instances, the front yard setback would be
Yep.
the landscape, requirement.
So that would be in the
Which
requirements.
is, because that varies from zone to zone, so
Mhm.
you're covered.
I like that, I like
Okay, very
that.
good, that would go right under H, the requirements, okay, good.
But we need to think of some word under H.
You know, at the top, the requirements.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where it should be, correct?
What are you gonna put there?
Yes.
What do you wanna put under H?
It's already there about, in the front, and no parking lots in the front.
Right, okay.
That's where he's gotta insert, because of the setbacks.
Yeah, he goes on a little detail on 12 about landscape buffer requirements, depending on if there's residentially zoned properties located across the street. Interesting. To screen parking lot areas from the public street. Another approach too, landscaped buffer.
He did a lot of landscape, just not
Yeah.
architecture.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I like that, cause he
Yeah.
takes into consideration that whole mixed use
Mhm.
thing where you don't wanna drive the residential people out.
So,
No,
You need that mixed use. I think.
you wanna try to roll this right into Don's, I think I misunderstood you before.
I'd like to, and then it can be in one.
Okay, I misunderstood you before.
I'm sorry, okay. And you see if you could incorporate it into it, because it kinda goes along with what he's done here. The only
Well,
thing, it's not a zone change.
Right, and except that your proposal applies to more than just the highway
It
and
does.
that
Right.
zone.
So you wanna keep it separate?
Yeah, I think it should be.
Okay.
I'd like to pursue the adoption at the same time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
would
'cause I
like,
think-
I think that's what I'm getting at, I really think we need to get this done ASAP. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'll straighten out all my scribbles.
There you go, listen, if you need me, you've got my cell phone, I can pop down, or if I'm
Yeah.
babysitting, answer any questions you
Yeah.
have.
Can you email this to me, so I have it in a document? form?
Sure, I can. Mhm.
And then I can forward it to Don also, to see what he thinks, if he wants to, just so we're consistent all the way through.
Are you gonna forward it to Don once you make the changes
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Dennis?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And and to see if he has any comments, and I'll come back to you with any comments then.
Okay. Make the changes first before Don, because I think they're important changes that
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
discussed,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for working on that.
Slowly get it.
And Jean and I were talking too, that we like very much the way Don keeps referring to the plan of conservation
Well,
and development,
right.
definitely,
and that's the purpose of that
yeah.
plan. Any other?
You're smiling over there, you have something else to,
Pace is
I
killing
know,
me.
I know. I make a motion, we add new business to the agenda.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
I just wanted to add that I did mention at the last meeting that I was going to be attending the EDC commission meeting, last week. I did attend, and the EDC is having discussion over the, retail size limits, considering, possibly, making an application requesting to increase the size. It's still being discussed. And I was there to have questions bounced off as far as considerations and so forth. And one thing I did was get the a view of the, excuse me, the plaza, the new plaza in Tolland where Big Y is. and the size of those stores, so that, to give some perspective to different sizes, for them to consider. So there, I gave that, to Lloyd, but to distribute to the commission, and they're still
we got 'em.
discussing it, so.
You don't have any of the numbers in your head?
The Big Y building itself, I wanna say is 75,000, and they have two outbuildings.
Yeah.
I wanna say one is 60 and one is 39, roughly, and that sits on 20 acres.
20 acres, wow, okay.
And, the way the regulation is right now is for any combination of or store alone, 40,000. So just to give you an idea, you know, cause that's, what was discussed at the meeting was that's something everybody's familiar with. A lot of people have been by there, in there, so it's easy to, envision, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to give you some ideas, but that's being discussed, that's, I guess, the point of asking me to go there, but, so, and.
Do they have a business, that's why they're requesting this? Have they
Not that I'm aware of.
referred to any businesses or talked to them?
Um,
No.
I don't know, I didn't even
Then
get into
I don't
that.
understand their reasoning then.
To attract other businesses.
But have they even gone out looking for other businesses first to see what they want?
I didn't discuss that with them,
I think that would be an important question that we need to ask.
I don't know.
Well, we wanna take the approach, I think, I don't wanna talk for them, but I believe what we wanna do is to see what's available, because remember when you joined the meeting?
I did,
And we were talking about what's available in town for size, and Lori has that, so the different sizes and what can go where, and so we're taking that approach based off of that conversation.
that's the information we definitely would need.
And then
Definitely.
just so I don't wanna speak for them, you know what I mean, but, I believe that's what we're doing, is just seeing what's available, what's out there, and then trying to change it so we can get another grocery, like, that's the main thing, I think, is looking at another grocery store.
We had talked about when Nancy and I were at the meeting a month ago, that I learned, and I didn't know this, that the Geisler's Mall in Summers is 43,000.
That whole
I didn't
plaza,
know that.
not
We
just
we
Geisler.
discussed that too, but that,
The whole complex?
Yes,
Yeah.
43,000.
I don't know what was said about that, it was
Yeah.
Shane was doing a lot.
That's what
doing a
the
lot about
Easement
I was gonna look
told
that
us.
one up also to verify, because
Doesn't sound right.
it doesn't sound good.
I think it was Fran that told us that. Was it
I
Fran?
think it was Shane,
Maybe Shane
I think it
said
was
that.
Shane that was talking about the size of it, I
They
wasn't sure
seemed
myself.
pretty sure that it was
Yeah,
43.
we, that was talked about last week,
Must have some
and
ideas.
of course, I've been in there since a few units have been filled up and so forth, so.
Well, check it out.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to know.
Nancy, too.
43.
Nancy, to address your question, and we've had this discussion before in a number of contexts, I think the real impetus in either removing the cap or extending it is to prevent situations where you've got a potential developer who's looking at a number of towns, for example, in northeast or central Connecticut, sees the cap and says, I'm done, and moves on without even considering, you know, any further development.
I think very, very important we add in this conversation now that the cap is retail, not industrial.
That's correct.
There's a big difference there. So, I mean, if an industry came in, there is no cap of 40,000.
No,
But it's
but-
also the total of all buildings, not.
Yes. I know, but I'm just saying, it's not an industrial cap.
It's retail,
It's a
restaurants.
retail cap. The important difference, so, just so it's clear.
Mhm. So it's not all businesses
Yeah, no,
that
we
you're
understand.
referring to,
It was
it's
a
Well,
not.
now we're gonna have a mixed use with industrial and retail.
See, isn't there also, am I allowed to talk?
Pardon?
Am I allowed
Yes.
to talk? Alright. Isn't there a database, I think Shane was talking about this, where all the town's information's in there, and when the businesses are going out there and doing searches, it just comes back with the data of what's in there? It doesn't look, I think that was something that was also
I've
discussed.
heard discussion, I'm not aware of it.
And that's part of it, is if you're not even in that criteria, the staff won't even show up, and that's part of it. So that's another reason for it, that's why they answer your question on, we really don't have anyone, but I think we're limiting what's coming back to them when they do the search, based off of that, that's my understanding.
I know Shane also spoke about Bacchus Motors. And the owner could do in order to try to sell it. And, I asked him if any one of you had discussed it with her and,
I did.
okay, he said no, you did? And is she gonna go with any options there to clean it up, to sell it?
She said that, if anybody was interested, they could call her. It's not listed with anybody right now. So, it's not being advertised. It's not actively on the market.
Mm-hmm.
It's up for sale, somebody wants to make an offer, but it's not. That's, and I spoke to her, and I didn't bother asking what the price was.
No, what Shane was referring to, that, there are.
Potential uses, no, I've looked at that
Yeah.
site, and there appears to be another abutting piece that
Yes.
it's under separate ownership that could
Correct.
maybe be combined with
That
that.
came up
Correct.
at
That
DEC
came up
too.
too, yeah.
And I've looked at that, and it's a sticky situation, you know, I don't want somebody to come knock on my door and say, hey, guess what, I just got a hell of a price for your house. I listed it, and, you're out next week, I sold it for you, so, it's, in planning sense, I'm looking at potential, and that's why I called her, because there was no listing agent, there was no sign, so I called. And was told that, yeah, if somebody wants to make an offer, they can give me a call.
Definitely, yeah.
I think
But-
EDC talked about potential brownfields or whatever, and
Right.
maybe state
I don't know if
money
that's
and-
even necessary, no one's tested it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they
Well,
were
that's-
saying.
Yeah,
that-
something, I was just
yes.
gonna bring that up.
DEC
That's
Right.
something
was
we were
talking
gonna-
Bring
about
that up.
possible testing and dealing and
Cleaning
talking
it
to
up
her.
and getting twice the amount.
I think I did
There's
mention, it
grants
was
out
just
there
before
for
our
it.
last meeting, that someone was doing test borings at the bus company.
Okay.
So that's an indication of a phase 2 assessment or geotechnical work.
Can I bring up one other subject, totally irrelevant to what we're just saying here? We've passed, approvals for industrial, and I think it's been over the 5 years, and I have not seen anything happen, so does that now mean they can't do it, they've gotta come back?
So you've approved a site plan?
Yeah, everything was approved, and of course, once you get the approval, they have 5 years to
Well,
complete that.
there's been an automatic extension from the state level because of the recession. I believe it's been changed to 9.
That's not one,
No, I know, but the state supersede came out after.
okay, this couldn't even be
Yeah,
that long.
which I'm not aware of.
Behind Bowles,
The industrial park, that's
Yeah.
just a subdivision, no specific,
Yeah.
the subdivision,
okay, nothing's been
right,
done.
that's been extended, those subdivisions and.
That was extended to the 9 years,
Yeah.
okay. What about work-live? How is
The
ours?
work-live zone,
Nothing's
I
been
don't
done
think
there
that's-
either,
I don't think it's been that,
it's almost.
yeah, well, I know that's for
It's
sale.
been at least a few years.
It's
yeah.
been a few
Yeah.
years, so
That's-
maybe you could even notify Penny and say, look, it's getting close to, you'd have to come back. And I was trying to think of another one. We had that same situation with the development across from the high school.
Yeah, that
And
was
so
right.
that's what brought to my
Yeah.
mind, because they
Yeah, well-
almost went past the time.
Well, I mean, I
until we
know
called them.
there's a state, the state
I did not
granted
know
an
that.
exception, yeah, and I
Okay.
wanna say that was done in 2009. That they added 9 years. I have to, there's multiple extensions, they've changed it, they took it out of the town's hand because people were dumping properties. And I do know clients of mine that even with that in place have in other towns requested extensions anyways on subdivisions.
Well, right, and so if they're close to going to that 5 or 9, whatever, and they can't start, then certainly they should come back in for reconsideration.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
And it would, I guess it depends on what they've done too.
Right.
You don't
Well, they have to either
they
have,
may have
they have to
done
make,
something.
they have to make the improvements
After
or put up a
something.
bond, yeah.
Right. Sorry to bring another one on you.
No, actually, I have somewhat of a list of
I
ones to,
figured you must have,
but
yeah.
it's, the harder ones are smaller 2-lot subdivision.
Oh,
Fortunately, most of our subdivisions, the big one up there, that's went away.
Oh,
That did go away?
across
Okay.
from Furnace
Furnace?
Brothers.
Okay,
That's been a long time, hasn't it?
yeah.
That was one
Napolitano.
I was concerned about,
Yeah,
but the deal fell
fell
apart.
through.
I mean, state.
It was the state, not
Yeah,
us.
right,
Right,
I'll clarify
right,
that,
access to.
right,
yeah.
the
um,
road's going in here.
You know, the more difficult ones are 1 or 2 lots where no improvements are necessary, so it doesn't
Right.
really apply, you know what I mean? They're standalone lots.
Mhm.
There's no road or drainage or,
Is there a requirement to cut a couple trees, or do you don't have to do
no,
anything?
no, not on those.
You don't
no-
lose them?
Not on, right, not on, where no improvements need to be made, frontage lot.
Mhm.
As
You know,
long as
standalone.
As long as it's filed in the town clerk's office.
Correct,
it
right,
lasts.
as long as the Mylars are in.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm watching the clock on the Mylars for these site plans,
That's
the
it.
Dollar General and the Family Dollar.
Mhm.
And, you know, they're going through iterations of minor tweaks because of, the Department of Transportation's comments, which, you know, they're changing a radius by 5 feet or whatever, you know. Family Dollar, they eliminated the drainage overflow going to the catch basin out in the street, and they increased the size of the drainage. I don't consider that significant enough to be a site plan modification, to bother your time.
Sure.
But, you know, once those things are done, they're going to be recorded. I told them which sheets they had to record. So,
You're doing a heck of a job, kiddo.
That's right. I think Bowles is ready to jump on at least a few of those lots.
Hasn't done anything,
Well,
no.
part of the thing is that they're hoping the line goes through.
Is that what they're waiting
If
for?
the
sure they are.
If the sewer and water and everything goes through.
Yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise, they have the expense of extending the water up from Shells, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they were going to.
And-
That
and
was
the
the
sewer.
issue.
Well, the
They
sewer,
were gonna do the sewer, the water, and underground utilities.
Right.
They fought us on that, and CLMP, they said CLMP said they could
they did
do a
do
brush
their,
ground.
they did do their drainage under 190.
They did, yeah.
Yeah,
And the driveway / access road
Yeah.
up to
mhm.
past Bowles.
But then CLMP wrote back and said, no, they didn't approve above ground, they wanted underground. So they had to do the underground, I remember that specifically, and I haven't seen any work at all back there. And we really need some, industrial,
Yeah, it's like 6 lots.
yeah.
Is it 6? Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Very good. So if there's anything we can do to get them pushing along, that'd be great.
Probably
Shovel it for them.
Yeah.
I've done enough shoveling.
Build a gas line and then they can hook to it.
Build it, they will come.
Any other new business?
Motion to adjourn, I'm Roger.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Aye.